Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I'm Gary, your host, and this is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and examine the stories and the art. This time, we're going to pay a little visit to the lunatic side of life with Spoof #1. I showed this briefly a couple weeks ago with a bunch of other books, and thought I'd do a deeper dive. I've been wanting to do an episode on this book for some time. So this is Spoof #1. Okay. Edited by Stan Lee. Spoof #1 from 1970 Marvel Comics. It has 3 stories in it. One written by Roy Thomas and one by Len Wein. Both of those drawn by Marie Severin. And the third one is written and drawn by Stu Schwartzberg. And I'm not terribly familiar with Schwartzberg. I don't remember seeing too much of his work. I remember some in here, and maybe a few other humor comics. I suspect he was more in some of the other larger venues, magazines and the like. I can't say, and I didn't look him up. So, of course, Spoof. It is a humor anthology featuring satirical adaptations of TV shows and movies popular at the time. It ran for 5 issues between 1970 and 73. They were very sporadic, because it was about a year, I think, between issues 1 and 2. And I enjoyed, Marvel made several attempts at these kind of humor books, and none seemed to last very long. But I like them, and of course they are, well, almost any kind of humor book of this nature is compared to Mad magazine, because, well, especially like in something like this, Spoof, that's all it's revolves around is spoofing popular shows, and Mad did a lot of that. Actually, that's the part that I always liked best in Mad. And a lot of the other stuff, as far as I'm concerned, was just filler, because I wasn't interested in most of it. And but you can see this is a cover drawn by Marie Severin. Good stuff. Now she has a long pedigree, starting. She the sister of John Severin, and she started at in production and doing coloring and stuff at EC in the 50s, and so she had experience with doing that old Mad stuff, original Mad comic book and stuff. And she's always, of course, she was a very fine artist. She was great, though, in this lighter humorous stuff. Some great caricatures of these actors portraying them. And of course, she did more serious stuff. She's primarily known as a colorist, but she was a fine artist. She did the first several issues of King Cole, and except for the first one, those were inked by her brother John, and they made a great team on that. And of course, the 3 characters from the Mod Squad. Jonathan Frid as Barnabas Collins from Dark Shadows. And then this is the movie that they were doing. This is Gregory Peck from Marooned. This is, of course, it said 1970. Marooned was, I can't remember if it was if it actually won an Academy Award or was just nominated, and I think it was for special effects. But it was a very popular movie at that time, and I've seen it several times. I read the book, the novel that it was based on, and of course it's a space show, but not really science fiction per se. And that novel was written by Martin Caidin, who was an aviation author. Wrote stuff about flying, World War II. He was a consultant at NASA, and he wrote also wrote, best known for the novel that he wrote, Cyborg, that the $6 Million Man was based on. And then decades later, he wrote a more scientifically grounded Buck Rogers novel. And through the 70s and 80s, he became better known as a science fiction author, even though he wasn't originally into doing the science fiction. But when he was doing some of this near future grounded space stuff, it kind of moved on over into the science fiction. So, as The Lunatic Side of Life with Spoof. Okay, inside, of course, Jonathan Frid. Darn Shadows. Of course, based on Dark Shadows. And he was, of course, I can't remember who created Dark Shadows. Popular gothic horror soap opera. Which was aired later in the afternoon. I used to watch it when I was a kid. My mother really liked the show too, and but it was very popular. But only lasted 4 or 5 seasons, I think. Then it had a 2 or 3 movies based on it. The first one is the best, and it basically retold the story of Barnabas Collins. Turner Classic Movies usually airs it around Halloween time, and I enjoy it every time. And of course, then it had a whole series of paperback novels based on it, and then had a reboot series in the 90s that I think short-lived, and I think was a very good show. I really enjoyed that. And then just a few years ago, they had that horrendous comedy movie with Johnny Depp as Barnabas Collins. Oh, it was so terrible. And I think it was so disrespectful to the source material. Okay, here is, he's Barnacle Crawlins. And notice they have of course, it's a TV show. You can see the TV. And then the panel borders have, that takes place on air, has the rounded corners, just as was later done on in the Super Friends comics. Creak stuff going on in the house. There's Barnacle Crawlins, and that's Daybed and little kid cousins, and Cousin Barnacle bringing in a coffin. It says, "This is Cousin Vampiretta," and bringing that in. And here he is reading master plots of 5 zillion horror movies. Because they're talking about, we've got to come up with new horror plots. So he's looking through all kinds of old books and stuff. And then you see the corners stop, and it's behind the scenes, and the sponsor is on Barnacle's back because the show is plummeting in the ratings. You got to come up with something new, something better to bring in so it gets Quinine Collins, Quentin Collins, the werewolf, but that doesn't work well enough. That's funny. I'm not ready yet. Because early on, there were a lot of little on studio and flubs, because it was originally done live. So there were little mistakes on set, flubbing their lines and stuff that got immortalized. And so here's trying to get his costume on. Then, well, that didn't work, and went some more. So then they got a mummy. They didn't have a mummy on the show that I know of, and all kinds of other stuff. And it is funny. It's Marie Severin does a great job telling the story, doing the getting the characters' likenesses and the like. They wind up having a big monster bash here, and it's still, they're still canceled. Says what? Then the kids turn on the TV. So let's see what it is that's scaring everyone more than our show. And then to turn it on, and it's a great caricature of Walter Cronkite, and it's the 4 o'clock news, which is on another network, opposite Dark Shadows. And said it's horrible. Protesters, nuclear explosions, bomb blasts, violence in the streets. And that killed it. I'm not going to go into as much detail on the others. But here I'm Marooned. Now, I'm not thrilled with Stu Schwartzberg's artwork. Although he is a fine cartoonist. You can clearly identify Gregory Peck and David Jansen right here. And of course, they stuck Raquel Welch in on the, and they followed the basic plot and story of the movie pretty well. Astronauts in orbit, and they're about to come. It's kind of like prefiguring Apollo 13 in a way. These astronauts who are on a space station for several months are kind of going nutty, and they're going to bring them back early, and then the retros don't fire. And they're stuck there, and they've got to try to come up with a way of rescuing these astronauts, and with sight gags and a lot of dialogue gags and the like. And it's a fun little read, and it did a good representation of interpreting the show, the movie. Then we have the Claude Squad, which was the Mod Squad. Again, she did such a, even here at the top, dun 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 dun, Claude Clump Claudie Clump Clump Clump. The characters are running, imitating the opening credits of the show. If you're too young to remember or even know what the Mod Squad was, they were 3 young people. They were cops, but they were undercover cops. And they were 3 hippies, and they were always undercover assignments and stuff. And they talked street, and all this other, what is now seems very silly and dated. And they get their assignment from the captain because of here they're seeing someone who's from a school who's being kind of blackmailed, and so they can it's silly stuff. They're sent. There's a villain they call the Blackhead, giving everyone terminal acne, and and they're sent to get all dressed up real hippie, go to this club where it's supposed to be find the boss. They walk in as hippies, and it's a real swanky uptown kind of place. I recognize, it's good enough all these decades. Recognize the caricature of this guy. I just cannot think of his name. Very well known, snooty right-wing and conservative commentator at the time, and all the snooty people pounce on him and beat the crap out of him. So that was the wrong location. And when they get dressed up, this time dressed up as very straight-laced conservative people, and they go to the right place, and it's a hippie place, and all the hippies jump on them and beat him, and they put him in the hospital. Then they go to this dark, gloomy warehouse. Now, this is where they were supposed to go. And they get there, and it's full of thugs, and they get into the obligatory fight scene. They get captured, and here's the big boss, and it turns out to be their own captain. So they want to get rid of you clods, so the show will be all mine. Then a bunch of little kids come in and beat the crap out of everybody, and they win and said, "They're our grandchildren." Yeah, you don't think we're real teenagers, do you? And stuff like that. And then it finishes up with some more little gaggy stuff by Stu. Shoot, the other guy, I can't remember his name right now, Schwartzberg, and it's a fun book. I like these kind of humor books. Ooh, I lost my focus. There we go. And it's a lot of fun. If you've never seen it, well, now you have. And I recommend any of these spoof titles that you can find for cheap. It's not worth spending a lot of money on, but for real cheap. You can see someone at some later point put a 20-cent price sticker over the original price sticker, reselling it. So, but it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy these. I hope you enjoy them as well. So please like, share, and subscribe. Do leave your comments down below. Do you like spoof? What other humor / satire titles that Marvel had do you like? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, comics are art.